my warning would be don't try to grow too quick, too fast. We have a great opportunity. This business model is great, but you don't want to grow too fast and get in over your head.
This is episode number 40 of the Short-Term Rental Success Stories podcast. Are you an investor that's looking to have your home professionally managed? Go to cohostit.com for more information. Welcome back to Short-Term Rental Success Stories. I'm your host, Julian Sage. This is a show where I talk to hosts about their journeys in starting and growing their short-term rental business. My goal is that you'll be able to walk away with practical information that'll help you become a better host and learn how to scale your business. Like any exceptional host, we all strive for 5-star reviews, so please go on over to iTunes and let us know what you enjoy, as it really helps support the show. If you haven't done so already, go on over to our Facebook group, The Host Nation, to connect with the community. Hey, what is going on, Host Nation? I am super excited to be back with you again this week. Next week, I'm actually going to be in Colombia for the holidays. I'll be there through Christmas and New Year's, spending time with my family, my wife's family over there. We're going to go to some really awesome places like Bogota, San Andres. Going to go to Medellin, some really cool places that I haven't been to yet. I've been to Bogota, but I haven't been to other parts of Colombia. So I'm super excited for that. I will be traveling, but that is not going to stop me from talking with you all and recording these episodes and just sharing as much. I've been trying to get as many episodes as I can. I've been trying to get a lot of episodes done in advance just because I am going to be gone for about 3 weeks and I still want to enjoy my time. But I do love everybody in the host family, and we've just been able to see so much growth. We've actually been able to reach the #1 spot on iTunes for Airbnb. That is crazy. Vacation Rental Machine and Short-Term Rental Success Stories are now the #1 Airbnb podcast on iTunes. That is wild. But this really is all because of you guys, and I wanted to highlight a few reviews that came in. We have a 5-star from Jenny Waymare. Jenny says, I just started listening. I've gone through at least 10 episodes. I love the variety of guests, especially Dawn from Lubbock. Shout out to Dawn, who does everything, to John in the DC area, who does this part-time. I've learned so much from each guest. We have 11 long-term rentals, and I'm looking to learn how we can add short-term rentals to the mix. Thank you so much. Awesome podcast. We also have from Linny802, 5 stars. They said, Julian has an uncanny ability to read the minds of his listeners. There have been many times where I've been pondering a particular challenge in my short-term rental business, and I find Julian covering topics on the podcast. The best part is there isn't a whole lot of banter to fill in the time gaps. Julian fills his time with great actionable advice. It's my new favorite podcast for all things short-term rentals. Karen C. Thank you so much to everybody that has been leaving awesome reviews. And please, if you haven't done so, I would love to hear your feedback. Please go on over to iTunes and let us know what you enjoy about this show. I just love being able to share and read these reviews. It's just so cool to see how this show has benefited you all. But I want to jump into today's interview where I had the honor of speaking with Josh Chapman. Josh is a father of 2 who works a full-time day job as a civil engineer in Dothan Island, Alabama. In as little as 2.5 months, Josh has scaled up to 4 rental arbitrage and 3 co-hosting properties and is about halfway away from allowing his wife to quit her full-time job. But Josh is such a stellar person. He's actually in our mastermind group, the BnB Empire Builders, and to be able to see his growth in the short amount of time that he has been with us to where he's going and what he's going to continue doing, it's just so powerful. But what you're going to realize during this episode is that Josh lays everything out so easily and makes it very clear cut because he has this foundation, these steps that he's been able to follow along with that has allowed him to be able to grow. So Josh shares his strategies on how he's able to rapidly grow up to 7 units in 2.5 months and the challenges he's encountered in doing rental arbitrage and co-hosting. It's pretty crazy how this business allows you for that exponential growth. And when you do have that strategy laid out in front of you, it really can make this seamless. And Josh shows that there's really no excuses, as where he's living, there's not a whole lot of people. There's around 68,000 in Dothan, Alabama, and where his other properties are located in Auburn, there's around 63,000. So there's not a whole lot of people in these places. These aren't like super touristy, high tourist areas, but he's able to overcome a lot of the objections and a lot of the fears of Airbnb, rental arbitrage, co-hosting, and he's able to take advantage and capitalize on a market that doesn't have a lot of competition. If you like my show notes for this episode, go to shorttermsage.com/STR40. Or if you like my show notes sent directly to your inbox every week, then go to shorttermsage.com/show notes. Also, be sure to check out our store on vacationrentalmachine.com, as we've actually opened up the freebie store where we are offering the things that we do talk about in Vacation Rental Machine podcast for free for you guys. We have a couple cool things in there right now that you can download. We have our top 10 house rules and also the automated check-in, check-out messages that we use for our guests. With all that being said, on to this week's conversation. Hey, welcome back, host, to another episode of Short-Term Rental Success Stories. In this episode, I have the special honor of speaking with Josh Chapman. Josh, would you please let the audience know who you are and what inspired you to get into short-term rentals?
Hey, Julian. Thanks for having me on today. Yeah, my name's Josh Chapman. I'm new to this short-term rental deal. I started out about 2.5 months ago and hit the ground running. 2.5 months, I'm up to 4 rental arbitrage properties and 3 co-hosting properties, and just trying to learn as much information as I can every day. So really enjoy you guys' videos and learning from the people you have on the show.
Awesome. Yeah. And thanks so much. I know that you're a part of the Empire Builders mastermind group. I think it's just so cool to be able to interact with you and see your growth. And man, you are crushing it right now. 2.5 months. What first got you started into this, and when did you take the leap to get in your first property, and how did you scale up to 7 so quickly?
Okay, let's see. Your first question, what led me to get into this? So I have a 5-minute answer, or I have a 50-second answer. I'll try to give you something in between. My wife, we had our first child about 3 years ago, and when she was pregnant, she wanted to go to bed at like 6 p.m., and instead of sitting up from 6 to 10, flipping the channels, I started looking online for ways I could develop some side money. So over the next couple months, that led me to Amazon FBA, and I was private labeling goods from China and selling on Amazon, and really enjoyed that. So that's kind of a couple years later now. I've kind of got that streamlined where I'm not having to spend a ton of time in development and growth with that. So I was looking for another side gig, and I stumbled upon a course on rental arbitrage through Airbnb, and I purchased this course September 1st, 2019, so a little over 3 months ago. Watched that course in about 2 weeks and didn't really think twice. I liked, of course I did some homework, started analyzing some markets, and then just decided to move forward. So I started reaching out to landlords and property management companies, seeing if they would rent properties to me. The first couple weeks were challenging. I got quite a few no's. Some people were kind of skeptical of renting these properties to me for me then to re-rent on short-term platforms. But all it takes is one. So I convinced management company to let me rent a couple properties from them. So I did it, furnished them, put them on Airbnb, and they've been great ever since. And really, it's been through word of mouth from that initial deal that has allowed me to scale up to, 4 units in that market, and 2 more potentially in the next month, probably. And then in another market, it's where I live. So I have a good network of contacts here. Kind of told a few people what I was doing, and they were telling some others. And, I'm up to 2 properties in this market now. So it's just been a lot of talking and telling people about this business model. And, whenever the right properties come along, just running with them.
I want to hit on something that you brought up. You brought up Amazon FBA, which is something that, a lot of people that are getting into the entrepreneurial space, you said that you're a consumer, you listen to a lot of podcasts. There's all these different types of online ways to make money. Amazon FBA being the white label style. What about short-term renting, though, made you want to go this way over, let's say, anything else? And what is this business model allowed you to do over the other models that you've tried?
I like the potential, and this is why I'm so fascinated by what you guys talk about. I like the potential to systematize this and grow it without a ton of time and investment from me. Like I said, I have a full-time day job. So, I always have my phone on me. I always am sitting at a computer. So if somebody messaged me through Airbnb, I'm able to quickly respond without too much distraction away from my day job. And I'm a father. I have a 3-year-old and a 7-month-old. So even in the evenings, as people message me on Airbnb, it doesn't take but, a minute to respond to the inquiry. So I really like the potential income compared to the amount of time and money that it requires to make that income, if that makes sense.
And in 2.5 months, you've scaled up to 7 properties now. How much are you bringing in right now? Per let's say on average per property net in 2.5 months.
Let's see. I'd say net probably somewhere between. I mean, it varies. As I was telling you a little bit ago, football season in a college town is a peak season. So I don't really want to skew the numbers too much with that. I would say somewhere net between 500 and 1,000. But again, I have a short sample size. I'm only 2.5 months in, so I don't have a whole lot to compare it to. Like I was telling you before, the football season in the market that I'm in now, that's the peak season. So we're just getting through that. But that was good. That was a good couple months there.
Now going back, because you're in a very small both the towns that you're operating in Auburn and Dothan, they're very small. And what about these markets though have you found to be advantageous to this model? Because a lot of people, when they think about getting into the space, they think, Miami or DC or some of these hot markets where there's a lot of people. But I mean, you're obviously proving that it can happen in smaller markets.
Yeah. Well, I hit on Auburn being a college town, and football is a big deal down here. So, the football season is great. There's always people. There's always parents coming to visit their kids at school. There's always, there is business traffic coming through Auburn. There's, your typical weddings, your family functions, and there's a lot of different things that bring people through these smaller towns. As far as Dothan goes, it is a small town. There's not near as frequent of traffic as there is in Auburn. But Dothan, there's not many people taking advantage of these short-term rental markets such as Airbnb or Vrbo here in Dothan. So the supply of short-term rentals is less than the demand, it seems. The hotel industry around here, there's a handful of hotels, and they're pretty booked out during the week. So I think there's a good bit of business traffic that comes down through Dothan. So that seems to be our typical guest is these the business travelers.
Now, talk to me, because you've scaled up just like really, really, really quickly. You're on that exponential growth phase with your arbitrage properties. But what's pretty unique about you as well is you're also taking on co-host clients, which we teach this on Vacation Rental Machine and on the show about diversifying your investment strategy with arbitrage and co-hosting, which is something that you're doing. But a lot of people, they don't do that. They just focus on one model. When did you realize, like, okay, I should start taking on clients, and how were you able to incorporate that?
Well, I wasn't really trying. They kind of fell in my lap. I was working with a property manager that I was mentioning that was in Auburn, and this property management company, I guess, has some contacts in Auburn. They sent my contact information to a lady that lives in Orlando, Florida, that has a vacation home in Auburn that they come up to, for a couple football games a year. Other than that, it's sitting vacant. She contacted me and was like, "Hey, would you be interested in managing this? We would love to earn some income while we're not there." So I said, "Sure." Really just using the same day-to-day communication, same day-to-day things as I was already using for these other properties, without the initial investment. Obviously, it's not as profitable, or as the potential income isn't as high as the arbitrage, but I have zero risk. There's $0 out of my pocket, so it's all profit. And then so it kind of fell in my lap. It's really just, like I said, been word of mouth.
And did you have like a process or way that you were able to communicate with co-host clients? Because when you're dealing with arbitrage units, it's very self-reliant. Everything is up to you. But when you're dealing with other people, that's a whole different layer of complexity. And there's these new ways that you have to approach people. How did you set up that initial relationship, and how did you know how to be able to communicate?
I think it was just through prior research. I knew I'd heard other people doing this co-host model, and I'd listened to some podcasts and YouTube videos and heard how they were approaching them. So I just followed, kind of what I'd already learned, even though I hadn't done it. But really just, kind of told them, "Hey, I'm having great success for these properties that I'm renting. I can do the same thing with yours." And I was able to give them some data from the last month or two. "Hey, it's the middle of football season. Last month I made this on this property. I might can do the same with yours." It really, when you start talking dollars with people who otherwise aren't making anything, they listen.
And what have you found to be more challenging? Have you found that dealing with co-host properties and clients more challenging, or going out there and pitching landlords and getting these units set up?
I think they're challenging, but just in different aspects. Like I said, when I first started out with this business, getting a landlord or a management company to give me the thumbs up was not easy, because for one, I didn't have much confidence because I'd never done it. I couldn't say, "Yeah, I'm managing X number of properties in this market." I really didn't have anything to draw from. But once I got that first yes, I was able to point to some properties that I was managing. I was able to ask landlords with confidence and kind of give them some real life scenarios of what I was currently doing. So I would say the arbitrage, the challenges there were shorter in time. It only took a couple weeks before I was able to get past those challenges. The co-hosting thing, it's a little more challenge day to day. You have someone else that has vested interest in whether or not their property is being rented, how much it's being rented for, what types of people are occupying their space. They have, they're kind of looking over your shoulder to make sure that you're not charging too little. You're not allowing somebody who's going to wreck their place. So I'd say the challenge is greater with the co-hosting model, but again, is zero risk on my part.
Now you're in a smaller destination, smaller population with the cities that you're in. What did you do when you were doing your initial market research to be able to set your units apart?
To be honest with you, I didn't do a whole lot. It wasn't. I probably could have done a better job in that regard. Moving forward, I've heard John talk about, kind of branding, kind of having a thing that you focus on that caters to your target market. I probably could do a better job of that. Really, I'm looking for high quality properties. I don't want to take on a rent that's $400 a month and it's in a terrible part of town, and I have to worry about other things. I'm looking for the more high end properties that I can furnish with nice things, but likewise I can charge a higher nightly rate than those people that are getting $400 a month rent, places. So to answer your question, I didn't really do a good job of setting myself apart, other than just really focusing on the higher end properties.
Now, in Dothan and Auburn, you said that at least in Dothan, the demand for short-term rentals exceeds the supply. What was your relation, or what was your communication like with landlords that maybe aren't super familiar with this? What were some of the rejections that you were hearing that you had to overcome?
They just weren't. They were very closed off to it, and I still struggle with that. That's the reason why I only have one arbitrage unit. And as I was telling you, the arbitrage unit I have is very close to my house, and I know the owner personally. So when I saw his property was vacant, I, went to his house and was like, hey, let me tell you about this business model, that I am, that we currently have in place. And he liked it. Of course, he was a bit skeptical, wanting me to make sure that we weren't going to allow just anybody into his property that was going to damage it. But I mean, it's, if I'm successful with this property, then I can go back to those management companies and those landlords that I'd previously talked to, said, hey, this property located at this address I'm doing this with, and, you can go talk to the owner, who's a reputable person in this town, and ask him about the experience. And it's been great. So I'm really, this is kind of a guinea pig property that I can point to and say, hey, we're doing really well over here. Trust me, that we can do the same with your properties, and hopefully grow from there. It's going to be a slow go, because it is a small conservative town. When people around here sometimes hear Airbnb, their eyes get real big, and they're not really receptive to Airbnb their properties. So it's going to be a challenge to scale in this market. But so far, in 2.5 months, I have one arbitrage and one co-host unit.
And just to clarify, not one and one total. You have seven total.
Yes, but just in the Dothan market, I have one arbitrage and one co-host unit.
Okay. And I want to hit on that because Josh, you're doing something right, because a lot of people that get into the space, it might take them a longer time to be able to scale exponentially. And that's one of the benefits of this business, is that ability to be able to exponentially scale. What are you doing that has allowed you to grow so rapidly, to 7 units in 2.5 months?
I really don't know, to be honest with you. Like I said, the first couple weeks, I got a lot of no's, and I think that's typical. But it's really about finding the right contacts and building a relationship with them. I got some no's from some property management companies there in Auburn, and all it took was finding that one manager to give me a shot. And we now have 3 arbitrage units through this same management company. And, every time they get a new property, I think they're asking those landlords, those owners, hey, are you open to this? Because we have somebody that might be interested. So he calls me once every 2 weeks and say, hey, we got a new property. Here's some details about it. You interested? So it's really just finding those right contacts, building those relationships, and doing a good job for them.
Now, that seems like it's kind of the golden goose type of relationship, where you have someone that's literally saying, "Hey, here's a property. But you're going the more single family home route as opposed to the apartment complexes. Have you found that? Do you have any apartment complex units that you are arbitraging in?
Yes, the three places we have in Auburn are apartments.
Okay. Three in Auburn are apartments. So you have one additional that is a single family?
Oh, I take that back. All four are apartments. One's considered a condo, but yeah, it's all four in Auburn are apartment / condo.
Okay, so the property manager, they're giving you apartment units for rent?
Yes, that's right.
That's a good relationship. That's nice. How
Yep.
much are you spending on getting these units set up?
Well, we have the 3 arbitrage unit. Well, we have one bedroom, 1 2-bedroom, and 2 3-bedroom arbitrage units. I'd say my base expenditures is about $5,000, and that's for the 1 bedroom. And then as you go up, or as we're going up per bedroom, in addition to one, I'd probably add on about $1,500. So $5,000 for the 1 bedroom, $6,500 for the 2 bedroom, and I guess that'd put us up around $8,000 for the 3 bedrooms. I'd say that's what we're seeing.
And these are higher end properties that you're furnishing. So you're doing some more expensive, not just throwing up a furnished room and saying this is good enough.
Yeah. That's we're not giving the nicest stuff, but we're not going, we're not getting everything. Everything's new. We're not really, unless I just kind of stumble upon something on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist that looks really, really nice. We're getting everything new.
So Josh, you've tried these different business models in the past, like Amazon FBA. As far as systems wise, how much upfront work was there with the systems to be able to get everything up and running? And how much time do you think that you're spending on the business now after those systems have been worked out?
So you're asking in regards to this Airbnb, this short-term rental thing.
As compared to, let's say, another business, as compared to, let's say, like another type of business?
I would say this is far less time intensive to get the initial. I mean, don't get me wrong, the majority of the time is spent on the front end. But to purchase everything through Amazon or Wayfair or whatever, that takes maybe a day to go down my checklist. Takes about a day. And then once everything comes in, I usually get everything furnished and get the property set up on the weekend. I'll take one weekend. And my wife and I will have our mother and father-in-law keep the kids, and we'll go up to Auburn or whatever. It usually takes about 2 days of pretty intense time spent to get one set up. And then, the next day we'll upload the photos to Airbnb. And I mean, from start to finish, I mean, we're knocking it out in about a week and a half. But really it's 2 days of hard work. And then, once that's set up and once we get it plugged into the various systems we have set up, I'm spending anywhere from 5 minutes to an hour a day corresponding with guests.
And have you done any real estate investing in the past before, or was this your first style of investing in real estate?
Yeah, this is the first style of investing.
Okay. And is there any product or service that you're using in your business that is really saving you time and money?
Yeah, definitely Smart BnB. Just streamlining the inquiry responses and the request responses, and then once I get a booking, all the pre-stay messages, just streamlining those saves me a lot of time. And then I also use Price Labs for smart pricing, automatic pricing. So that that saves some time and energy. And then I use Hostfully as a PMS. So I'm new to that, so trying to learn Hostfully. But yeah, those are the three main tools that I'm using.
Okay. And is there one house rule? I know that you've only been doing this for about 2.5 months, but you're up to 7 properties. So is there a house rule that you've started including in all your units that has really kind of saved you before?
No, not yet. We really hadn't had any crazy experiences thus far. I think the worst thing that's happened, somebody spilled some coffee on a rug. So I had to charge them, to have the rug cleaned. But other than that, I mean, there really hasn't been anything out of the ordinary. All of our guests have been good thus far.
Okay. Now, I mean, you're growing really quick, Josh. Where do you see this going as far as your growth? Are you going to keep on putting more money into arbitrage units? Are you going to take on more co-host clients? What's kind of your strategy since you're playing with both right now?
I really don't have a strategy, to be honest with you. As properties become available, I'm just looking at them saying yes or no. I'm kind of maxed out right now. We do have four units that are arbitrage. So like I said, the initial investment that's $20,000 to $30,000. So I'm trying to hit pause on the arbitrage units right now until I can get some cash flow coming in before I can grow the arbitrage strategy. I like long term. I like the arbitrage model for the potential income that it offers. But I made a couple decisions early on in my Amazon FBA business that I had to learn from financially. So I'm trying not to go down that same road and get in over my head too quick. I mean, I like both models, and I hope to in 2020 to grow both models. But I'm just trying to be patient. And it's hard because every couple of weeks there's another property that's being thrown at me, and unless it's a good fit, then I'm to the point now where I can be more selective. Like I said, we are just focusing on those higher end properties in great locations. So I'm able to right now I'm being more selective.
I love how just very you're very confident when you're talking about all of this, and I think it's really interesting. You've just had this like crazy growth, doing really well, knocking it out of the park as far as getting everything set up the right way. Crossing all your T's, dotting all your I's, and doing this. I think you're doing something right, and I think the way that you're approaching it, it's not like over the top. Like you're going through the motion and you're doing everything the right way. If you could go back and redo it, would you do anything differently, or what would you do different if you did have to start from scratch?
Yeah, we kind of talked about this. The initial cost of the course that I took was a bit high. I probably would have saved that money. But I mean, it did open my eyes to to this business and the possibility of this business model. So I don't want to complain too much about that initial cost. It did give me a good base understanding of how everything works. But there is a lot of great content that you guys and others that are in this space provide that is just as good as this paid course that I took. I mean, as far as the ins and outs of getting properties, managing properties, and just the day-to-day upkeep, I wouldn't change anything. It's been a great experience so far, and we're excited about the future growth.
Now, I mean, this has all kind of come on so quick, but what's your end goal? Like, what's the reason why you're getting into this business? And what do you like so much about it?
Well, I mean, I think the end goal, my wife, we do have 2 kids. She has expressed that she'd like to work from home if possible. So, this is something, if you have a computer or a phone, which everybody has a computer and everybody has a phone, this is something you can do from home. Aside from the initial setup of a property, after that, if you hire the right people, hire the right cleaners, and have the right help in place, then you don't really have to you don't have to have a physical presence. Dothan is about 2 hours away from Auburn. We have a great cleaner that we work with there. She handles not just the cleanings, but if I need to pick up any supplies or shopping, or if I have to go by and get keys or whatever it may be, we rely on her a lot, and she does a great job for us. So we love the flexibility that this business offers. If you have a Wi-Fi signal, or if you have internet access, I love how this can be done anywhere in the world.
And if you could give one piece of advice to someone who's looking to start in this business, what would that be?
I would say be smart. Take things slow, but not too slow. You don't want to. You don't have to have the answer to every question to take that first step. But just doing the due diligence, like I alluded to, I kind of jumped in a little too quick on my Amazon FBA business, and that taught me, cash flow is very important. If you've never had any, if you don't have any entrepreneurial experience, be hyper aware of where your money's going, and you can put yourself in a bad situation and be strapped for cash if you're not careful about your growth speed, which is why I'm having to hit pause on my growth right now until we get some steady cash flow going. So my warning would be, don't try to grow too quick, too fast. We have a great opportunity. This business model is great, but you don't want to grow too fast and get in over your head.
Now, going off of that, because you're doing both co-hosting and arbitrage, what would you recommend for someone who's just starting off? Do you recommend doing both at the same time, or doing co-hosting, rental arbitrage first? Where do you see?
I think what we did with the rental arbitrage, I would recommend getting one rental arbitrage unit first. So that way, you can kind of develop a style. You can kind of furnish things how you want to furnish them, and you kind of get an appreciation and understanding of what things cost. So that way, when you do have a co-host opportunity, you can tell the owner, hey, it's going to take about $2,000 for me to take your property to where it needs to be. So I would say arbitrage probably should come first. That way you can speak with confidence and with a little experience to these co-host opportunities.
I think what you're saying, Josh, I think that's so true. I love what you said about getting the confidence and the experience first through that first arbitrage property, because you're not messing with somebody else's money. And that's something that I had to first learn myself, because my first client was, myself, but then I did have a co-host client. And even with that first co-host client, there was things that I was doing, like I was ordering maybe things that I wouldn't have actually purchased, or I was recommending to them to do things that maybe, wouldn't have been most beneficial. But when it's your own money and you're playing with that yourself, you get it. You can afford to make those mistakes, and it doesn't poorly reflect on anybody except yourself. But when you're doing that with a co-host client, those mistakes really can hinder your growth and your ability to maybe take on more clients from that person as a reference.
One thing that I've talked with John about that we've really seen, the co-hosting properties that we do have are very nice. They're high end. And then the two that are pending that we're probably going to take over in the next month are far beyond what I ever could afford. So, the potential profit, I don't want to dismiss co-hosting as not being as profitable as arbitrage. The arbitrage unit, you do have to pay rent. And so I'm looking somewhere in the $1,000 to $1,500 a month rent. These places that we're co-hosting for, if I were to rent those, they would be $2,000, $2,500, $3,000 a month. I mean, they're just that high end. So that means I can charge more, and my co-host fee off of that nightly rate is reflected by how nice these places are. So, I would say on average, your arbitrage units will be more profitable. But co-hosting is nice because it gives you access to these vacation properties that are like really sweet, that, you may not otherwise have access to.
Yeah, that's so true. It's when you do have those clients that are bringing in, let's say $7,000, $8,000. I mean, if you're making 20% off of that, that's a good chunk of change. And all you're doing is you're throwing that same type of systems that you would be doing for yourself into yours.
Yep.
And where do you see short-term rentals going in the future? And let's say your market, because these are smaller populations, smaller destinations. Where do you see short-term renting in these locations going?
I think, like I mentioned, especially in Dothan, there's not a whole lot of short-term rentals made available. So I think it's definitely going to grow. It's a small town, so there's people catching word of what I'm doing around here. So I think I might have some competition from friends in the near future. But I think there's some regulations that will probably come on in the next couple years. So that will make things a little more strict and limit probably where these properties can be located. There's pending legislation in Auburn. So my growth there, I'm mindful of these areas, these designated areas that will be open to short-term rentals. They should make a decision on this in the next month or two, from what I've heard. But I guess really you really have to keep an eye on requirements and the laws, local laws, and I haven't really had to do that lately. But here in the near future, I'm going to have to be more mindful of that.
And I know you work with John and I in our private mastermind group, but if where you are right now, if you could, what's the one thing that you're working on in your business that would take you to maybe that next level?
Just trying to get a better systems in place, and I think that's why being a part of the mastermind is so valuable, and having access to you and John through that. With John, I don't know how many properties he's up to now, but eventually I'd like to be there. And getting someone who's experienced with managing that many properties, hearing how he has systematized everything, there's a lot of value in that, because as I scale, I'm only one guy, and me and my wife are a team, and we can't handle it all. So getting some input and some knowledge from someone who's able to be as efficient as possible, there's a lot of value in that. So that's really, at this point with seven properties, I'm just trying to learn as much as I can, so that way I'm not having to learn on the fly when I get up to 20, 30, 40 properties. I'm trying to learn everything I need to know for 20, 30, 40 properties right now when I have the time to.
No, those systems are so important, and that's why it's so cool to be able to see you in the group and seeing, what are the things that you're working on in your business right now that you could go back and check mark those boxes to make sure that you do have the right systems in place, so that when you do get to that point where you do have 20 plus properties and you're operating at a different level of scale, that you do have your foundation set the right way. Because if you didn't have that PMS set up, if you didn't have those automated messages, if you didn't have a way of hiring new cleaners constantly and having a constant funnel of cleaners, it would be detrimental to your business to be able to scale to that level.
Exactly.
And the last thing that I want to find out is what are you do you see this being like a full-time thing for you? I know that you're working a full-time job. Do you see you doing short-term renting full-time in the future, or what's a timeline for you where you'd like to be and how you're going to get there?
Well, hopefully my wife's employer or my employer aren't watching this. But no, I think in the short term, my wife is wanting to manage this from home. And I mean, we'll see where it takes us. If it makes sense for me to leave my career, the big thing, I guess, that this might not be what you want to hear, but having a better idea of where this business model is going to be 10 years from now. That's kind of the question that once I get to that point, when I'm up to 20, 30 properties, that's the question I'm going to be asking. Is this sustainable? Is this, I know I've heard people, I think you guys were comparing Airbnb and short-term rentals to Uber. There was all these regulations to Uber after it first came out. And then the market kind of drove Uber. The demand really brought Uber back into the picture after all these initial regulations. So Airbnb is still early on in the life cycle. And we are seeing some regulations, but I think I saw something the other day, an article where I think the state of Florida is looking to create a law that would eliminate any regulations by a local city. So, I mean, that's great. That's the same scenario with Uber. The demand for short-term rentals in Florida is speaking louder than the people who are opposed to it. So if that's the case, then maybe this could be a long-term gig. But once I get up to 20, 30 properties, I think the potential income would be there for me to make this a full-time thing. But asking the question, hey, is this going to be around in 10 years? Can I make a career out of this rather than just an income for a year or two? So those are just some questions that would influence whether or not I decided to jump out into this full time.
No, that's really good feedback, and I think to kind of not to answer it, but to give some perspective on that is like you were talking about with Uber. When you're talking about scaling, and when you're talking about creating a business, not just a way to create cash flow, but in order to do this long term, is when you're looking at those models such as like Sonder or Lyric, or you're in the rental arbitrage space, or you're talking about property management like Evolve or Vacasa. I mean, these are companies. They all started off just managing a few properties. They all started off with one, but it was that one that eventually turned into hundreds and thousands. And that's part of being able to create your brand and create your systems, and to be able to create not just a way to be able to make, a few extra $1,000, but to, create something that can bring you so much more wealth and so much more scalability potential. So yeah. I think what you're doing, Josh, is so cool. I'm super, super proud of you. I think the level that you've scaled up to in such a short amount of time is just so awesome. And to be able to communicate with you, on a weekly basis in the Empire Builders Mastermind group, I love it. I want to keep seeing you in there. I want to keep talking to you, and I think that you can provide so much value. And I'd love to get you on the show again when you have scaled up to that 20 and you're taking on a whole different level of systems, and to hear your perspective from Josh, 2.5 months to Josh, let's say a year from now. So
yeah, that's exciting to think about. And thank you guys, you and John, for providing such great content, consistent great content. You guys are definitely a valuable resource for people trying to make it in this business.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Josh, for taking the time and talking with the host family. And until next time, Host Nation, keep on hosting. Hope you hosts benefited from the show. If you found value, please go on over to iTunes, leave us a review, and let us know what you enjoy about the show. If you'd like to talk to hosts that have been featured in these episodes as well as the community, go on over to our Facebook group, The Host Nation.